Welcome to the OtherWorldsGG Community Cast. This is episode number 39. I am Table for Two, and I am joined today by Mellified and Alien Pickle. How you guys doing today?
This is Mellified. I am doing very well. It's a lovely day, and I'm excited to talk about some games today, guys.
Yes, absolutely ready to talk about some games. How about you, Jim?
I've done a little trolling.
You have.
I have.
You have indeed. Yes, you have.
That's my game, trolling.
And that's, you know, everybody
simulator.
Everybody has a thing, I guess. Yeah.
That mom taught me. I'm just a product of my upbringing.
But yeah, we recently had the release of Diablo Ii Resurrected, which shockingly is quite entertaining.
I don't know. It's kind of like the same game. It just looks better. I mean, they didn't really change it.
If you like the original, then, you know, I think what's nice about it, even though it does look prettier, what's nice about it, I feel like, though, is it is more playable in a modern sense. Like, it's easier.
Yes. Now, there's only really one thing that I want additional from it, is when you hold the mouse button down, like you're fighting a crowd of dudes, and you click on a guy. If you move the mouse over one of the other guys in the fight, you should continue to wail on the next guy, but it doesn't. So you end up, if there's 10 guys you got to fight, you got to at least click 10 times. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but I pay by the click. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it still carries, so visually it's definitely been updated, and some of the mechanics have been improved upon, like, you know, the shared storage between your characters, for example, the increased storage amount. And those.
Well, I thought the storage got increased whenever you bought the expansions. So it was like it had like the single tab, and then it became like shared loot tab was separate or something. No, you start with like multiple tabs in there, right?
You start with one personal tab, and then the other 4 tabs are shared tabs.
Right. So I think it used to be like one personal, one shared.
No, I don't think you had, because you had a thing like what was called a mule, and essentially what you would do is you would trade with your mule for storage. So this shared tab thing eliminates the need for doing the whole mule scenario. It also cuts down on like character backend stuff in their systems and whatnot.
Right.
So,
but they could have sold twice as many copies of the game.
Well, I don't think it works that way, but you know, what I'm saying is like you'd have another. Well, I guess you'd have to have another account with a different character, sure, that you'd have to trade with, unless you had a trusted friend you could trade with. But,
yeah. By the way, I was trolling. I think the point is, it is the same game but better looking. That was kind of like. You know,
no, but it's worth.
Don't be disappointed because it's actually.
It's worth discussing though, because I mean, there were times though I did find it a little bit frustrating because I feel like because they've upgraded the visual textures, the hitboxes for where you can click changed. I feel like, because there's times where I feel like I'm clicking on a thing, but it's not, and like if I click at the base of the thing is when it registers my click. I've noticed that when doing a lot of like fast action stuff, like it's an odd thing that I've noticed, at least for me. Maybe I'm bugged or something. Who knows?
Well, it might be the deal is it's using the hit detection of the original character, and if you hit the G key and you keep the mouse where it was where you were missing, you'll probably find that you weren't on that character in the old school graphics.
There might be a chance of that, or maybe I'm just, you know, really dumb at clicking on things, but I do find it fascinating too, because some of the biggest discussions that I've seen from people is like their Necromancer builds. Like, I mean, I think Blizzard ruined themselves when they added the Necromancer to Diablo 2. Because that kind of became like the thing of like, well, where is it in Diablo 3? And then when they brought it out to Diablo 3, like everybody instantly went out and made one and like played, you know what I'm saying? And then like, you know, Resurrected comes out and it's just like in the beta, you couldn't play as the damn Necromancer. And then all of a sudden it comes out and it's just like everybody I know is trying to play as the Necromancer. And
yeah, why do they play keep away with the damn thing? You know, it's weird.
Well, I just find it fascinating that everybody flocks to that class. Like, what is it? Like, could they not make something good? Like, what is it about that class that makes the other ones not as desirable? Is what I'm kind of curious about. Like, why do people enjoy that one more than the others? Like, I've enjoyed other classes in some of the other games. Like, I prefer my wizard, honestly, in Diablo 3. But
because Necro is the massively single player experience. You can have like 20 friends with you.
Right, yeah, because then you have your hired hitman person, and then you could have like a golem, and then like 10 skeletons and 10 skeletal mages, and then you just go in and wreak havoc on everything. And then you use bone spike or whatever it is, and
yeah.
But
I wonder how that works out in multiplayer. If you have like 4 or more people that are in a party, and they're all necromancers with their whole crowd, like you'd have like easily 100 skeletons.
That's a hell of a entourage. Roll up on Diablo, like, hey, check out me.
Yeah, Diablo's like, oh hell no.
Well, I was just gratified that they kept a big part of the original launch experience, which was the entire BattleNet failing and collapsing in on itself. Because I thought it was really must have been hard for them to keep that dedication going.
Yeah, it definitely had some launch day troubles with the BattleNet, and I think a lot of games day one are having that trouble these days because I think the audience is so much larger, which begs to wonder, do they anticipate that? Do they not plan for the larger... and that's where I get a little confused.
Sometimes, I mean, these days, a lot of games will burst into the cloud where they'll spin up more game servers from AWS or Azure or some service like that. But that's very expensive relative to using your own hardware. So, it costs them a lot of money to support every single person. But what happened with the original Diablo 2 was there was this server that was basically load balancing across all the game servers. Because when you started a game on BattleNet, you were playing on Blizzard servers. That was how they were trying to prevent cheating. And that master server had problems. It was not very well engineered, and so it would crash constantly. And so that would be like you're sitting in the lobby and you can't get into a game. And it seemed like, at least with this launch, it was exactly the same. The interesting thing is the way we fixed it with Diablo 2 back in the day was we got it stable at 100 game servers to one master server. And then when we needed more capacity, what we did was we just made another realm. So that's why we ended up with Korea A, B, and C, because we had the original A realm, and then we added 2 more to keep up with demand, but we didn't trust the master software to run 300 game servers, and we didn't want to have to re-engineer it, so we just kind of cookie cuttered it. And I think Blizzard kind of forgot that lesson somewhere along the way. But
well, for what it's worth, though, I feel like by day 2 things had kind of smoothed over. So...
Yeah, and probably a lot of people, jumped on for launch day and then didn't go back to it, right? Like that is a common.
I feel personally attacked.
Well, you and me both, right? We did the same thing. So, maybe it was just. I mean, if they sold the copy, they're happy, I suppose, but it's kind of a shame.
Yeah, it's like this game's been on my backlog for 20 years, and now it's backlogged again.
Yeah. Well, that's one good thing. If you, as an older gamer, right, you all the games you didn't get around to playing the first time get re-released, and then you get to ignore them the second time around. So
there was a joke back in the day about this guy. It was some meme cartoon before memes were actually a thing, where this guy's like he's like 20 years late on like game launches, and so I guess the joke is he like goes up to his friend, he's like, yeah, I just finished Half-Life 2, and he's like, man, that came out like 15 years ago, and he's like, well, no, I'm just not getting to it. And then he's like, well, what have you been playing? And then he's like, it's like some new like Star Wars game or whatever. And it's like, yeah. And then it's like, and it goes like 40 years later, man, that game was great. It's like, because he's, because there's so much that keeps coming out that he finally gets to it because he plays, it was the joke that he's the one guy who actually plays games when they come out all the way through. So as new games keep coming out, his backlog is actually the stuff that like has just come out that he can't get to yet because he's still playing the stuff that just came out. And so it piles up so deep that it's like 40 years later he's playing the thing that was new for you 40 years ago.
Yeah, can you imagine like 40 years later he's like, oh, I just finally got done with Half-Life 2. Man, I can't wait to start on 3.
Oh yeah, that'd be the terrible joke, because well, reasons. But yeah, we've also been playing a little bit of Ghost Recon Breakpoint recently too. We've been kind of diving deep into that.
That's kind of like all I've played all week, actually. Was between Breakpoint, I went and reinstalled old school Wildlands, which I kind of like better. I don't know. It's like Breakpoint does some things that are different better and some things that are different worse.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
The vehicle system I feel like in Breakpoint is worse.
Yes.
The AI system in Breakpoint I feel is better.
You mean your allies or your enemies? When
your
you say
enemies.
AI?
Your enemies.
Okay.
Specifically your enemies. Now, the thing that I do find frustrating, and I understand the whole point, because Breakpoint is just a little spoilery, I guess, is at the beginning of it, you essentially lose your team, so you're going in solo. So there really is no team for you to have, so you're not really necessarily running around all the time with AI like you did in Wildlands. It's just like, it was like you and 3 of your AI friends. Although, correct me if I'm wrong, Melified, can you actually get AI companions to go with you to do stuff?
Yes. Yeah. So at launch, Breakpoint did not have AI companions. And, as part of their efforts to sort of revitalize the game, they added them in as an option. There is a settings menu where you can turn them on or off.
Yeah, it's quite nice to have them with you.
Yeah, it makes the game a lot easier because they can revive you, and if nothing else. But it's interesting because what I feel like Ubisoft with Wildlands had a lot of opinions about what would make the game good and fun, right? And they built that game. And that game, I think is one of the more fun co-op experiences. And with Wildlands, they did it, they made it, they did some PvP stuff, they did a little bit of PvE stuff, but they didn't do a ton to it other than cosmetics. And then Breakpoint comes out, and they took the gear system from Division 2 originally. They didn't have the AI companions. The world was a lot less diverse in its terrain. And so it felt very, very different than Wildlands. And I feel like everything that they have done since launch has been to bring it back to be closer to Wildlands, but where Wildlands expressed an opinion in the choices that it made, Wildlands, they just threw up their hands and said, we don't know what makes the game good, so we're just going to give you toggles for all of the different things that you might or might not like, and you can customize the game the way you want it.
Do you mean in Breakpoint?
Yeah. In Breakpoint, yeah.
Okay. But honestly, that's okay. Because then it's a have it your way, Happy Meal thing. So I'm all right with that.
Well, I don't hate it, but I think it takes away something because you have to say to your friend, oh, hey, you don't like that? Yeah, there's a menu option. Go toggle drone patrols off, or go toggle helicopter patrols down, or, whatever.
But seriously, F those helicopters because good
yes.
God, between them and the drones are bad enough, right? Because it's like a big recon drone that flies over. It looks like a 747, and you can hear it, right? Like, you'll hear it coming, and then you'll kind of just get the like, oh shit, I'm being spotted icon on the thing.
Yep.
And you have to like dive on the ground and use that ground camo, like rub mud on yourself or whatever to disappear on the ground.
So that drone is actually what bothers me. The helicopters don't bother me as much, to be honest with you. It's that drone that actually bothers me the most.
Yeah, because if it spots you, man, bad dudes come, they just teleport in. Right.
Right. Well, it drops
a smoke grenade.
I was about to say, it drops a flare on you, and it's like, here he is.
Yeah, and dude, I've been in places in the map where I have killed everything, and then it drops that flare, and then there's just like a crowd of dudes. It's like somebody was just like, it's a rave, boom, and like 100 guys come running. So that's a little rude, but yeah.
So are you saying that it wasn't a rave, that you weren't ready to?
Well, there was some chem lights and such. Yeah. No, I've been like mercilessly slaughtered by that game, but never so much as the boss fight that Hunter and I were in last week. Oh my god. And we don't even know how we won. It was just like we lost to it enough times that I think it was finally just like, oh god, I got to let you guys just have one.
So basically, there's a boss fight at a certain point where I'm not to get too spoilery because it's crucial to the plot of the game, but there's a boss fight that you go under where to get into the building, you have to even fight the boss, you have to take out this like super tank drone thing. By the way, they've partnered with I forget who, but there's actually Terminators in the game, i.e. from the movie Terminator, and they have other like drones of similar caliber that you would have probably seen in Terminator that are just what do they call it, like a Goliath or a behemoth. It's this behemoth tank thing, and
remember in the original Terminator, whenever they had that like flash forward to the future, and they had that giant robot tank like crawling over skulls. Yeah, it's basically that, and
right,
it's rude.
So we had to fight that thing just to get into the darn building. So we figure out, and that takes us a while. So we figure out how to get that guy down, and then we go into this boss fight. And the boss that we're fighting has these like 5 healing drones flying around and constantly keeping him alive. And so
he's basically invulnerable. If the drones are alive, nothing.
Or if any of his goons get close enough to the drones, they heal the goons too.
Right.
So we were shooting at these drones thinking that maybe we could take them out, but nothing was happening. And then Jim gets the wild idea, well, why don't I shoot a rocket at it and just like see if I can't blow them up? Nothing. And we just get demolished. I mean, we tried this so many times, and I figured, well, maybe we have to turn the drones off somehow, or maybe there's something else going on. I lost count how many times we tried fighting this boss, and then finally I was like, all right, we're doing this one more time. If we don't get it, then I'm just going to call it a night anyway. And sure enough, we get in, and all of a sudden I start shooting at the drones, and they just die. And I'm just like, wait.
Yeah, like we beat the boss in 15 seconds from coming in the door.
we went in and we smoked the level, and I was like, wait a second. Hold on. we just spent the last 20 minutes getting our ass handed to us by this boss. And all of a sudden, did the game get pity on us? All of a sudden, like what happened?
And speaking of kills, when you come in the door, how many times did we come in the door and just eat a rocket in the face? Like you just step in the door and pow, and you're down. Just you got fragged,
and then
before the game could even load.
Right, and then I was hiding up behind like a concrete wall, getting shot by smart bullets or something. It was weird. Yeah, we experienced some of the weirdest stuff trying to fight this guy, only to have it like on the last call. It was like it gave it to us. It was like the game's like, all right, we're gonna give you this one. It was weird. I don't know how to explain it, but we got it, And
if we'd have beat him like that the first time, then it would have been the most anticlimactic boss fight ever.
Right, and as
that was the guy.
Yeah, and then as an unlock, you get this massive hand cannon of a revolver as like an unlock for beating this boss. And I took that out with me the other night with Mellified, and like I started shooting it, and I was like, Mellified, can you hear that? And he's like, oh yeah. it's a loud gun. But it's like one
Yeah.
shot, one kill on like anything you shoot with it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like a Desert Eagle is like inadequate next to that thing.
Yeah,
This is
it's
like
obnoxious.
it's like on Supernatural, the like Winchester hand cannon that they killed the devil with, right? It's like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild, but we're having a lot of fun with that one. We've definitely played a lot of Wildlands, and then Mellified one day said, "Hey, why don't we try Breakpoint?" Breakpoint initially frustrated me, and my recommendation to you is if you haven't played it in a while and you only really touched it for a little bit, or you're thinking about getting into it but leery about it because of like a bad initial press on it, give yourself the opportunity to play it by yourself for a while first before you go and play it with friends, just to like play some of the story, get used to the game mechanics, and then go and dive in with your friends. Because I was trying to play it for the first time with Mellified and Alien, and I was just having frustrations left and right because it just gives you tutorial hell for like the first 30 minutes of gameplay.
Hour.
Yeah, or hour. Like it's constantly like tutorializing you.
Yeah, and it's not good tutorial. Like, oh, I wish I'd have known that. If I hadn't, if I just skipped the tutorial, I wouldn't have known a thing.
Oh, if I
some
push
of it,
forward
some
on
of
the
it was
joystick,
like
I
that.
move forward. Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
it's like in the old Nintendo manuals where they have to like tell you how to insert a cartridge into the Nintendo in every single game manual. It's like, obviously, this is the first video game you've ever seen. Here's how it works, and it's like,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, big fun there.
God,
Well-
I just logged into Breakpoint while you were talking, and I forgot how fucking badass my dude looks. I was just standing here. It's like, ooh, wait, yeah, I did excel at this last week, didn't I?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we were playing the other day. Like I said, Melfi and I were playing last night, and when we walked up to the co-op table, we saw like avatars for like other of my friends. They weren't online though, but it was like you and Medic and Kraith were all standing around a planning table, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that makes me nervous though, because like if one of my friends died, I would never be able to play this game again because their ghost would be like in the game, and I'd have to look at them all the time.
I thought about that in Forza, like like I'm playing Forza and like I see, I'm racing with Mellified, but I'm like, but Mellified's playing like some anime game, like why is he in here? It's like,
yeah. Well, I actually saw it was like a tweet or something I read from a guy that was actually like writing about specifically Forza, that his dad had died and he got to race with the drivatar of his dad, and he like felt positive about that. He was just like, oh my god, it was so good, and but with me, like the community that we used to have, there was a guy that I played Sins of a Solar Empire with, right? And he had a little bit of a health catastrophe and ended up dying from it. And then it was like he was on my Steam friends list, right? And apparently his wife just left his computer signed in for the next year. It was just like he never left my Steam friend list, and it was just like, I've had to fight the urge to click it and try to talk to him. It's like, oh wait, no, he's dead. So finally I had to unfriend him, and I felt like kind of like really bad about like, oh, I shouldn't like unfriend my dead friend, but I have to purge this shit out of my life.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few of that. There was, and not to get like dark here for a second. It's interesting, like with the way Facebook does stuff too. When friends who unfortunately pass, that like they get memorialized on Facebook. Like there's a thing where it can say like, this is like a memorial page for said person. It can be a little rough because there was like a year there where like I just knew a bunch of people that were like of various different ages, but like people who had died from cancer or car accidents, or who unfortunately decided to check out themselves, and it just it's rough. So I can sympathize with that, Jim, because like I eventually ended up nuking that entire Facebook account one day because I was just not sure about how I felt about all that stuff, and there was other reasons too, but yeah, it can definitely be interesting, and I'm kind of curious though about the future, like the legacy that you leave behind, because like I've got this Steam profile, right? And it's like,
yeah, like what happens to my Steam library when I die? Does it just get locked down? Can I give it to somebody?
Yeah, can I will that? And, can I put that in my will and give it to someone?
Well, I guess you could, right? You just like have your password written down somewhere. See, that's another thing that I've thought about too, right? Like if something happened to me and I have all the accounts and there's like, I don't know, like 50 different passwords that I have to deal with, right? And like, my wife has no idea. It's like, what's the Netflix account? And I have to like yell it across the house. So yeah, it's I need to have like an actual physical record of all the passwords somewhere, just in case I get hit by a truck. And then
what I do for that is I have a 1Password family account.
Uh-huh.
And so I have all of the important passwords in a shared vault that my wife and I can both access.
Oh, so she just needs to know the vault password.
Right. And then it basically is set up so that she's a co-administrator, so she can go in and take over my account basically if push came to shove. But yeah, I mean that's a serious consideration, especially even if it's not for us, then like our parents as they get older, that may well be a problem. So
oh wait, so this is a business opportunity, right? Like if we set up a service that's like digital life insurance, right? Like who is going to handle your affairs when you die, and then you can just like offload all your digital bullshit on us with like a will, and we'll distribute your stuff.
Yeah, well, and part of that can be please delete my browser history before you give away my laptop so that no one sees my porn.
Right, exactly. It's like everybody needs to have a porn buddy, right? Like somebody that goes to their house and burns all their incriminating shit.
Absolutely.
I just had a moment there of like Toy Story, like at the beginning of Toy Story, Woody's like, everybody remember to have a moving buddy.
Oh dear.
It was Woody's porn buddy.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I bet it was the dinosaur.
All right, Rex.
Wow.
Oh, man.
That's Toy Story 5. We just wrote the plot.
Yeah, and they stashed their hustlers under Timmy's bed where he wouldn't find them, but his mom did when she was cleaning, and like now he's in hot water. That could be like the plot of Toy Story 5.
Yeah, because I couldn't. To me, Toy Story 4 doesn't exist. I'm sorry.
Well, I've never actually watched it, so.
Yeah, don't. It ends with 3.
Is 4 the one that's got the Huggy Bear in it, like the big?
No, that's 3.
Oh, okay. I have never seen 4. Then I guess I'll keep it that way.
Yeah, because the nice thing about the way it ends is it ends on this like upbeat note that sometimes
passing the toys on to the next generation.
It's passing this whole, and it's like the duty to always be there for the kid and that kind of thing. And then, like, Toy Story 4 pretty much tells the story of, like, Woody forgetting his entire, like, ending monologue of the last movie and deciding to, like, run away and, like, be a carnival, like, rat, essentially. And...
creepy.
That's
I guess because the plot is like they go with their owner to this carnival, and magically while they're there they end up bumping into Bo Peep. Like she resurfaces, like she's not been in the movies since the first movie. No. And it's like Woody's old flame, and so he decides to like be with her, and like it's weird. It gets, I don't know.
It's always a woman. Every stupid decision guy makes is because of a woman, right? That's the trope.
It's the trope. That's true.
It's like my retarded decisions. Brought to you by chicks.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
Well, no. Speaking of interesting decision, one of the games that I played was Necromunda Hired Gun, which is near as I can tell, somebody who really liked Doom and played way too much Warhammer and wanted to bring those two things together.
Yeah, and they really like the fisheye lens effect of having like 100-degree field of view, because that was what bothered the hell out of me with that game. It was just like, I can't take it. Like, that's like playing Quake, right? Like old school Quake. Whenever it came, if you set the field of view like way out, and then it's like the world kind of like blurs around you, like, you know, like it's bending reality around your head. Yeah, it's terrible. But other than that, game's great, and you get a pet dog. The dog's
very
maybe
very
the best
angry pet dog. Yeah,
that you can upgrade his bionics and turn him into like a freaking wood chipper.
Yes.
Didn't you also,
and yourself?
Didn't you also recently play another game and finish it?
Me?
Yeah.
I played
Tales of Arise, right? And tell us about Tales of Arise. I want to hear your.
Okay, so once upon a time, years ago in Japan, Squaresoft did a bunch of games called Final Fantasy, and I believe it was it Namco at the time or Bandai? I don't remember which of the two was the instigator, but they looked over and were jealous, and so they made up their own sort of very similar game in Tales of Vesperia. And it's been this sort of, poor man's Final Fantasy for a long time. That said, some of them have been really good, and I've liked some of them more than, some of the Final Fantasy games. So, it's a little bit unfair to say that's all it is today. Tales of Arise is interesting because it's the newest installment. It's built, as a next-gen game from the ground up. Really, really beautiful. Has some interesting combat mechanics. But at the end of the day, it is still a JRPG in all the best and all the worst ways. As you get closer to the end of the game, the amount of time you spend playing versus the amount of time you watch your characters filling in all the plot holes by just narrating over each other and talking to each other and speculating on how this could have happened. It like increases exponentially as you get closer to the end of the game, where it just is more and more and more cutscenes.
Like, usually the Japanese games are like an hour at the beginning of just press A to skip dialogue, right? And then they let you play the game. So this one actually is like the opposite, right? It's like it lets you play the game until you get toward the end, and then it's just like, hey, sit and watch our movie.
Yeah, well, and like I said, they were like filling in all the sort of gaps in all the mysteries of the game, and it's it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it, but I definitely get to a point with a lot of JRPGs where I hit a wall and I just like my give a damn is busted. I can't care about these people anymore. And that's when, press B to skip starts happening for every dialogue, and I just want to get through to the end. So I definitely got to that point, with Tales, but I enjoyed the combat quite a bit.
You know what game does that for me is I've actually been playing a lot lately is Genshin Impact, and it's a Chinese game if I'm not mistaken. And they also kind of dialogue you to hell because there's so many characters and there's so much stuff going on, and I enjoy it, and I've enjoyed some of the characters and some of the story that I'm doing, but there's definitely a lot of like, all right, Can we move this along, please? I'd rather get back into like
it's
the
like
world.
It's like, come on, wrap it up.
Yeah, it's the wrap it up box from Dave Chappelle. It's just like, wrap it up, yo. Let's go.
Yeah, and I mean, Tales of Arise, it has some of the goofy stuff that's a little borderline creepy, and I'm borderline creepy, so it doesn't bother me. But I can understand people who are like, why do I need a swimsuit pack of costumes for all these female characters? And the guys have swimsuits too, but nobody puts the swimsuits on the guy. It's people putting them on the girl and then running around.
Yes,
it
but that's
seems
also
like that's
that's
the
also
common
very it's
thing.
also very Japanese though to do that. Like
Yes, absolutely.
It's a weird thing, but because you don't see, it's not that it doesn't happen, but you don't really see a lot of Western studios doing that kind of stuff. You definitely see
Not
it.
at all.
I mean, it's not that it hasn't happened, but you just don't nearly see it as much.
I don't remember the bikini DLC for Fallout 4. I'm just saying.
Or Lara Croft, or yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
So.
good God, man, like Dead or Alive 6, was it? There was like $1,000 worth of like dress up clothes for the girls
Yep.
in the fight. It's like it's $1,000 for like a $50 kung fu game. Okay.
Yeah. That
That's
was
nuts.
super weird too, because like they toned down some of the physics and some of the costumes in 6. So
Yeah.
like the cheesecake that you're ostensibly paying for wasn't even that good. Like you're
like
better off going
the
back
jiggle
to
physics
5.
were toned down.
So it's just like, what are you really paying for? Come on now.
Right. Like, dude, if I'm paying $1,000 for something, then I better actually be at risk of catching a disease from it.
You know, it's really like I get baffled, and maybe this is just the nature of how I play games, or like invest in my gaming. It fascinates me when you see some of these games that has hundreds upon hundreds of dollars worth of DLC, like hundreds upon hundreds of dollars of DLC, and I know like some of them you can almost grant an exception because of it being like DCS, for example. There's licensing involved with the modeling of the planes and the this and the that, and it's more of like a
and it's hyper accurate.
It's hyper
right.
accurate.
Well,
like,
but DCS, you're actually paying for like every one of those planes is like a game unto itself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So and they just interoperate, which is great.
And I'm okay
if they were
with
selling
that.
skins, if they were selling me skins for my plane, I would be super pissed. Right. So yeah, there's a difference.
So
I'm all about functional DLC, but cosmetics, I'm just not.
And Paradox's whole business model is a bunch of DLC for a game, right? They will just keep putting out DLC. Like Crusader Kings 2 had over 100 pieces of DLC, I think it was, totaling several $100s if you were to buy it all full price. But one of the things that happens a lot is they'll bundle that stuff over time, and then you wait for it to go on Steam sale, and all of a sudden you're getting what was $400 of DLC for $4. If you're willing to wait.
Sure. I mean, I think Stellaris, is at pretty high amounts of DLC too. They don't have nearly as much, but I'm looking at the DLC thing right now, and I already own all the DLC because over time I've bought it.
Yep.
But if you're new to it and you want to get everything, it's $200 out the box just for the DLC, just the DLC, not even including the game.
Yeah,
which is $40
like Warhammer.
on its own.
Well, Warhammer 2. Consider that not only Warhammer Total War 2. That you have to buy the DLC for it, but then you also have to own Warhammer Total War 1 and all of its DLC in order to play the complete game in the grand campaign thing. And that's a lot of money. Yeah, because those things run like $9 to $20, and then the games are $60 a pop. And
right, and like you, Pickle, and like you, Mellified, I know that we're broad gamers. We like playing a lot of different things. We enjoy varieties of games. So for me, it's kind of hard in my head to be like, how can I invest in this whole game, which I would include the DLC, and yet maybe I don't spend nearly as much time of the investment. It's like the investment versus like the how much you invest, how much you get out of it kind of conversation.
Yeah, it's like I can buy all this DLC and I'm never going to actually see all of it.
Right, and I feel the same way about like a lot of the games that I've had for like years. Like I was buying bundles. Of course I was single too, so I didn't have to worry about the wife and the dog and all this other stuff, the house, but like as an adult now, looking back on my, earlier years of playing video games, I've got this huge Steam library, and probably 80% of this I'm never going to get to. But the point I guess I'm trying to get to is if some people are very locked in on a very specific game and that's all they really play is like these 1, 2, or 3 games, that I can understand and I can kind of get behind, because they've kind of picked their thing and they're going to stick with it. It's like people back in the day playing MMOs. Like all people played was like maybe World of Warcraft and Call of Duty or something like that. Or, I'm thinking of like, what was the most popular thing at the time. So, but now there's just an endless supply of games and an endless supply of customers, it seems like, to play them. And, Stellaris has put out just a massive amount of DLC, and it kind of sucks, because on one hand, because when I bought the game, it was one game, and then as they kept putting out DLC and patches, they kept changing the game mechanics and the gameplay and how you played the game and this, and that became frustrating, because I was trying to get the most out of what I had already bought, but then they kept changing it on me.
In their defense, I will say that Paradox has done something that no one else has that I'm aware of, which is they give you for free a launcher, and you can download the last version of every major patch through that launcher. So if you really want to go back and play Stellaris 1.8, 6 or whatever it was, and that's the version that you really enjoyed, you can go back and do that. You can't do it through Steam, but you can do it through the Paradox launcher. And I like that
that's an interesting thing, though, because we just saw that article this week about Steam is going to stop doing that.
And I was going to bring that up, and we talked about that in our news show, or we're recording this out of order, or we will talk about that in our news show. But so the Steam rollback thing is interesting that just came out. Or the Valve thing. I'm really interested about that.
It wouldn't impact me on very many games, but there's a couple.
Well, and for things like mods, as we kind of talked about in our mod show a few weeks ago, like there are times when you don't want to change the version of the game because you have to wait for the mod authors to get the new version, update all the mods, and then you could keep playing. So there is a benefit to staying on an old version.
So here's something, there's an update to the article apparently from Valve. So Valve shared in a statement with PC Gamer that explains that the studio doesn't have plans to remove the option to download older game builds. They said that they are actually not planning to disable the downloading old builds option. What they are working on is an approach to handle edge cases involving unowned content and helping partners more easily take down builds that need to be removed for things like copyright issues. So that's interesting. That's a little different. I find that fascinating.
So is that like when GTA 4
That's
took out
exactly
all
what
that
just
music?
came to my mind. That's exactly what just came to my mind.
So they took all that music out, but if you still knew what the app ID was, you could get in there and get the old version, right? So
I think that's the idea, maybe.
Yeah, because I would have thought, like, as developer, you have control of what's in the repo, so it's not just like, oh, I uploaded it once and it has to stay.
Well, I thought Steam forced you, if you don't uncheck the box, I thought it forced you onto the newest version always.
It does.
Yes, it does.
And there's no way to go back that I'm aware of.
Yeah, but people could run Steam command, right? And then point it at a specific version and pull it down or something.
Ah, interesting. Yeah. So, well, like I said, Paradox makes that available, which I do appreciate because of the issue with Stellaris, where the game changed so radically between some of the versions.
And for what it's and in their defense, you are correct, and I do agree with that. And that is nice that they do that. It's just a little frustrating.
Yeah, well, they weren't always super clear about when the changes were coming, what the changes were going to be. Save compatibility was a huge issue, and on a game that you could play for weeks, that's always a little frustrating.
Yeah, that was the kicker, because we were in a major, I remember specifically that I think we were in a major like 4 or 5 person game, and then there was this new update that came out and broke our game, and it was just like, are you kidding me?
Oops.
Like, yeah.
And it wasn't wasn't a thing where they would change the game and it would break the mod to where the mod author had to like just adjust a couple of things, right? It was like it would break the game colossally. Like that system that your mod relied on, like the diplomacy is completely different now. Or like fleet stuff is completely different. So then you would have to have the mod linked to a previous version, because you might, it might gut half of your mod's mechanics at that point. So yeah, like the one that I think of is the Star Trek one, because that Star Trek one, man, whenever they like keep changing the game, it was just like, well, it can't work anymore because reasons.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty lit Star Trek mod too, and that I do remember that. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some other games.
Speaking of Star Trek,
that
stuff came out. I haven't really played much of it, but a little bit. I'm waiting on
them all.
Well, so GOG released all of those old Star Trek games. Well, and here's the funny thing about it. The GOG has been known for putting out like these old games, usually with tweaks or fixes or hooks or whatever it is that it's going to take to make these old games work. Usually, however, this go around, like I went to go and install and play Bridge Commander. Won't run.
Really? Oh.
Like right out the box?
Weird.
No.
Oh, strange.
Did it work for you?
That's shameful. I haven't tried it yet, but I installed it.
No, the only one of them that I bought was Starfleet Command 3, which then I immediately remembered why I never really stuck with Starfleet Command 3. I went back to 2.
Yeah,
so
and that's the weird thing, because so they came out with Elite Force 2, Bridge Commander, Starfleet Command 3, Hidden Evil, and Away Team. And then waiting in the wings to come out, they've already got them on here as to be announced or to be released or whatever, is Armada and Armada 2. So
which I don't understand why the delay. I would have thought they would all just brought them out. Maybe they're having trouble with them.
So what fascinates me is Starfleet Command 1 is already on GOG, and then this package had 3 in it. And you mentioned 2, which I do agree is the superior game to that series, and yet it's not on GOG. Why?
Yeah, which is strange. But you can actually buy it for $5 from Taldrin. Like if you go to taldrin.com or whatever, they still sell it.
Really?
So maybe that's but the thing that's weird about it is they have it packaged in some like CD-ROM format that I'd never heard of before, and I had to go download a very specific like burning tool to burn it into an ISO, and then I could actually install the thing. It was really a pain in the ass. So it was like whenever I actually got it unpacked like that, I stuck it up in Dropbox so I can't lose it.
I'd really like to try and see, if you could dig up that link for that, so that way we can post it in our Discord, because I've been having a hard time finding a legit place to buy it. So if you could dig that up, that'd be awesome. Thanks. But yeah, no, I'm really excited about this, and I'm really glad GOG has finally gotten these Star Trek games, because I've been saying for years that there's all of these great Star Trek games that need to come to GOG, and we've gotten a lot of the Star Wars stuff. I think it's great, despite what's going on currently with Blizzard. Before all this bombshell crap came out, Blizzard partnered with GOG to put Diablo 1 and Warcraft 2 on here, which I thought was fantastic, to bring those back out for folks to be able to get those. Because people were like, well,
where's Diablo 2? Well, now we know.
Well, yeah. Well, you could actually, if you had a copy of Diablo 2, you could link it to your Blizzard and then download it through your account on the website. They actually had downloaders on the website where you could still download that, but they didn't end Warcraft 3 before the Warcraft Reforged debacle. But
so that makes me wonder though with Diablo, because with Warcraft 3, it was like you couldn't even play the old version of Warcraft anymore, right? So that's why people were pissed. It was just like, well, you forced me onto this other thing regardless.
Right.
And
so
with
the weird
Diablo
thing was
2,
The weird thing
And I actually have original Diablo 2 and play with the new version.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I think you can still go in and download your actual like installer for legit Diablo 2 from them. They screwed that up with Warcraft. Because when they did the Reforged stuff, I went to go download my version that I had linked in my account of Warcraft 3 and like the Frozen Throne stuff, and it was like, here's Reforged, and I was like, what?
Oh no.
So
yeah, and like all the people that played the mod stuff, like Dota and whatever else was out for the thing, they were just SOL.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we don't have to go down the Blizzard rant again. We've done it enough times on our show, but it's a shame they've kind of screwed that stuff up. So this is where I'm saying,
but they learned their lesson with this one.
They did it right. They did it right by partnering with GOG to release the retro stuff on GOG. They for some reason they didn't feel like they should touch it with their own stuff. So they knew that people were still interested in buying it, so they went ahead and partnered with GOG to release it. So I give them props for that. But there's
now, if they want to make an HD version of Diablo, I will pay them for it. That's fine.
Sure. Well, and for what it's worth, I think that I think that GOG needs to still keep working on getting some of their retro stuff out. Like, they've been definitely doing a lot more modern and current stuff, and so occasionally they'll come out with another retro thing, but there's still some Star Wars games that haven't come out yet that I really want to see on there, despite whether or not for what it's worth, like, you could easily say that, what was that one, what were the two Star Wars, was it Rebel Assault and Rebel Assault 2? The kind of like arcadey FMV,
Yep.
Like, I would argue that those games are terrible.
They are. They were terrible then.
And yet they're on GOG. So like, why isn't Force Commander on GOG? Like, and I get it. I know it's not the greatest of the RTS games, but I'd still buy it because I'm crazy. Like, where's some of these other ones? There's a whole slew of Star Trek games still that aren't out there, including Starfleet Command 2. Like, I'm looking over here on my shelf. Like, it'd be really nice to see, like, the Phantom Menace get on GOG, which was actually a really good game, even though the movie may not have been that great. For a game, the Phantom Menace, I thought, was pretty good.
So I wonder, whenever the new KOTOR comes out, are they going to pull the old KOTOR from sale, even though it's a radically different game, but because it's got the same name, and they'll be like,
I hope not.
We didn't want people to get confused.
And here's why: because they sell Battlefront Classic and Battlefront 2 Classic they call it Classic. So I would assume that they'd probably still sell the old KOTOR and call it Classic while the new KOTOR comes out. I would think they'd be smart enough to do that.
We can hope.
We can hope. But like, where's Klingon Academy? Like, we need some Klingon Academy out there. Like, that to me is just like,
I wonder why that game is so hard to get out, because like, even whenever we were trying to play it off the old CD-ROMs, it was a bitch to get that thing to run. So maybe that's why they haven't wanted to screw with it.
And Star Trek New Worlds. Now, I know New Worlds wasn't the greatest of games. I get it. But, if the whole point is, games preservation and putting these old games out and letting people at least play them, then, it just surprises me when you see some
New
games
Worlds
that aren't as great. And then
New Worlds was like a Command and Conquer Star Trek mod, though, wasn't it?
I think it was supposed to be that. But, like,
I just remember it had tanks that looked like shuttles, and I was like, what?
Right. Well, see, I'm surprised that, like, speaking of old games, I'm surprised none of the Dune games are on GOG for like that shocks me. You would think they'd be fighting tooth and nail to get those Dune games on GOG. Yeah. Especially with, like, everything that's going on right now. Like, Dune 2000 and Emperor of Dune were great RTS games. So
yeah, then there was the Dune game that was like the story game too, It was sort of an adventure game, not a
Oh yeah,
RTS.
yeah.
Yeah, that was
Mhm.
the first one that came out.
Yeah.
And the Sega CD version of that is really interesting because it incorporated clips from the movie.
Oh, that was neat.
Which
Oh
you couldn't do on
yeah.
PC at the time because there was the full motion video was brand new.
That's right. I do remember that now. So I'm just looking over at my shelf, though. I mean, when I'm thinking about all these things, because I still have I have a small, humble, big box PC collection. But yeah, and these are just a few of the things that I'm seeing on my shelf that I'm shocked are not on GOG.
I gotta think it's not by choice, right? I think they would put them on there if they could get the rights or whatever they needed.
I guess maybe they have to pick and choose for reasons, but it still just surprises me.
I mean, look how long it took to get the like X-Wing games onto GOG. Even like that was amazing when those came out because it was just like you can't play TIE Fighter, you can't get it, and then suddenly you could, and it was like yay.
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure. I don't think people were really expecting that though. Like, I don't think people were thinking about it. You know what I mean? Like, here's my argument is that I don't think people are as up in arms or wouldn't be as up in arms today if we hadn't got TIE Fighter. I think when these Star Wars games got released, I think that's when the flood of like, hey, let's go get all this other great stuff that we haven't had in a very long time. Because they were putting out some old great PC games, but like, it's like, Torrens Passage or like King's Quest 7 or like these old adventure games or these old like early 90s like point and click stuff or Doom or Duke Nukem stuff that's been around for a while that you can get generally everywhere. But it wasn't until we started getting all these like great Star Wars games that you couldn't get anywhere else that people I think started waking up to the idea of like, hey, what else you got in there? You got any more of them games in that bag? It's like, yeah. So,
well,
yeah, I forget what game it was, but I remember reading a story about like the epic quest of getting this game, like finding who the hell actually had the rights to whatever it was and getting it onto GOG. And it was just like they had the game, they had it running, but then they had to like actually hunt up the rights holder, and it was hell.
Well, I know
like
that
nobody knew who it was.
I know that they had issues with Homeworld Cataclysm because they couldn't get the source code to Homeworld Cataclysm was gone apparently. And so they were able to somehow repackage the existing game and get it to work properly. But they couldn't call it Homeworld Cataclysm, so they had to re-release it as like a different game. And it's not part of the Homeworld collection either. Homeworld Emergence, I think, is what the name of that one was. Formerly known as Cataclysm. Yeah, Homeworld Emergence, it basically is Homeworld Cataclysm.
And honestly, that was probably back in the Space Game Junkie days, that was probably the best developer story that I ever heard, was the developers like trail of tears of how they made Cataclysm, like to the point, remember like the one guy like developed an eye infection because he had this nervous habit of like rubbing his eye whenever he got frustrated, and he was like so frustrated he about rubbed his eye out.
Here's something interesting about Cataclysm real quick, that because I just looked at the store page on GOG, they actually explain why it's not called Cataclysm. And they say here that it was originally called Homeworld Cataclysm, but Cataclysm is now a registered trademark of Blizzard Entertainment, and that is why the game name had to get changed.
Not those guys again.
What's funny about that is Homeworld was published by, I believe, Sierra, wasn't it?
Or Gearbox. Well, I guess
Gearbox
maybe currently Gearbox.
The original was Sierra, yes.
Yeah, and Sierra's owned by the same company that owns Blizzard, so you'd think they would have been able to figure that one out.
Yikes.
Anyway, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
So what else you been playing?
Well, so I posted a few links in our show notes channel here of games that I've been playing recently, so I could remember them all. I've been playing a game that just came out of early access. Like, this is literally what I've been playing lately. Encased, and it is a RPG, sci-fi RPG set in the 1970s under an alien dome. And basically the setup is there's all this alien technology inside the dome, but if you go in, you can never leave. Like, organic matter is locked inside the dome. So it's this weird mixture of like outcasts from human civilization and the most brilliant scientists trapped in this petri dish, and stuff starts going bad, you know. Stuff starts going sideways, and you're kind of on the tip of the spear for a lot of it. It's an interesting story so far. I'm still. It reminds me a lot of Wasteland in that it's kind of got a little bit of jank to it. Wasteland 2, Wasteland 3, those RPGs from In Exile. You know, but it's good. It's better than I expected, I guess. I've been enjoying it quite a bit, and I'm really interested to see where they go with the story on it. So
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a Fallout 2 isometric vibe.
Yep, that's another good example of the genre.
This definitely looks good. It's on my wish list on Steam, so I'm looking forward to trying it.
I think we all played it. I don't know that I think I might be the only one who actually finished it. The Ascent.
Yeah, that's what I need to get back to.
It's an action shooter RPG, 3/4, Diablo style perspective, set in a sort of weird cyberpunk future world. You're in an arcology owned by a corporation, and something goes wrong with the corporation. I quite enjoyed it. I thought it did a lot of things right. I know the PC version had some performance issues for quite a while after release, which was frustrating for a lot of folks. Ran flawlessly on the Xbox, interestingly, which is where I played it. And I mean, I would recommend it. It was only a $30 release, and it certainly, I thought, lived up to that price point and then some. So
nice.
And it looks pretty, which is always helpful.
Yeah, no, it does help. At least
attractive games for attractive people. That's what
That's
we're about.
I think the last game I'll mention that I've been playing recently is I've actually been going back to the old Star Wars Galaxy's Legends stuff, and I've been dipping my toes in that a little bit again. So I enjoy it.
It's good for a toe dip.
It is. It is indeed.
Surviving Mars is one that I played a little bit of. They came out with a new expansion for it where you basically can tunnel under the surface of Mars and get into a cave system and explore that. There were some unfortunate technical issues with that expansion, specifically when you transition from the surface to underground, there's a loading screen, which just feels super crappy in the context of the game. The game is supposed to be a colony builder where you're, trying to colonize Mars. And over the last 2 years that it's been out, they've added quite a bit of different ideas to it. You can do missions like science missions, or even sabotage the other colonies on Mars if you want to. The other colonies are sponsored by different countries, so you can go after the Chinese or the Russians, or you can trade with them. And so there's some interesting mechanics there, but the opening of the game I still feel like is the strongest part, where you have all these little robots and you basically tell them, okay, go over here, build the thing, do this, do that, get me some natural resources. And so I'm not sure that the late game, I think the idea of the underground section was to add some more stuff to do in the late game. But I feel like the loading time issue really kind of knocked it for a loop.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a load transition, like every time you switch between, then that kind of blows.
Yes, it is, unfortunately. So
Yeah. That would be like playing The Sims, but every time you had to go inside the house, you had to sit at a loading screen.
Yeah. Well, and half of your colony is on the surface, half of it is below the surface as you progress in the game. So it's just really tedious, unfortunately. Another one that I went back to try to play is Generation Zero. This is the game where you wake up in Sweden in the 80s, and military robots have basically killed or kidnapped all of the humans on the island. And it has 4-player co-op, which is probably the best way to play it, but it suffers from a severe lack of ammo. The robots take a ton of hits, and there's not a lot of ammo. So the idea is that you're supposed to be sneaky and just kind of avoid the robots, but that's very unsatisfying for me.
Yeah.
I want to Rambo some robots, damn it.
You know what that game is? That game is DayZ with the robots from Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, that's a good
so
analogy.
if you just mash the two together, it's like, let's fight the Terminator, but it's DayZ. So instead of zombies, we have Terminators, and they're like ridiculous to kill.
Yes.
And you don't have any bullets. And here's a can of beans, but you don't have a can opener, so you starve to death.
Yeah. Well, and it had some interesting things going for it where there was like the mystery of what happened, where the robots came from, and how do you stop them and all this. And you could get into military bases, and there were all kinds of good loot in the military bases, and you get better weapons and stuff, which if you could get to that point, it started to open up and be a lot more fun. But I very seldom got to that point playing it. And so I went back to it hoping, okay, I'm going to, put some more time into it, try and get to the good stuff. And the game would crash at least every half an hour. And I don't know what it didn't like about my system or whatever. I made sure I didn't have corrupt files, from Steam. But I was super disappointed because I couldn't keep the game running. And so I just gave up, went on to other stuff. But
yeah, it sucks. The thing's been out for years and they still have stability problems.
Well, and I don't remember having crash problems, when I played it like 2 years ago. So I'm not sure if they broke something or it's just, my new machine is, a little bit oddball for what their code expects or what.
Yeah, it could be like DLCs have introduced wonk that wasn't there before.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it has, like, if you can get 4 people in it, it makes the game more fun because it feels a lot more survivable with other humans. So it doesn't scale up the difficulty or anything near as I could tell as you add people. So that makes it a little more tolerable. But yeah, that one was interesting. Did either of you guys play Empire of Sin?
No.
This was John Romero's. Him and his wife started a game company a few years back, and Paradox published this. Was their first game, and it is a empire builder, like a tycoon game, but you're a gangster in the 1920s in a like faux Chicago. It is got really interesting story aspects to it. Like the character that I picked, her husband had been assassinated and he was the leader of a gang, and all of the people in the gang thought she did it to take over. And so there was this civil war among the gang that you had to sort of negotiate and try to win people over to your side while you're trying to, set up brothels, set up distilleries, set up bars, speakeasies throughout the town, and then fight off the other gangs as well. And so like that story aspect to it really appealed to me and made it fun. But I like beat the story and I had basically taken over one of the 20 neighborhoods in the game, and I was just like, there's nothing to keep me going. Like the tedium of going and conquering all of the other neighborhoods just wasn't enough payoff for me. I know they've got a big expansion plan for it, So I'm hoping maybe that'll add, some more content, some more to do in the mid to late game for it.
Yeah, it's like you defeated Bowser, but the game's not really over until you step on every single Goomba.
Yeah, that's a good.
So you have to go around and do
analogy.
cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds kind of like Mafia Crusader Kings.
Kind of, yeah, and it definitely has like you recruit different characters, so that'd be like the knights or the people in your court in Crusader Kings, and it has some of that same Crusader Kings aspects, but not nearly as involved as like Crusader Kings 3 is if you've played either of those. So I found it like a good beer and pretzels, sort of lighter end of the strategy spectrum. It just didn't have quite enough legs for me.
Yeah.
But I need to go back and play like with another boss, another gang, and see if the story holds up for if they still have good stories for some of the other characters.
Yeah, it sounds like it just didn't know how to end gracefully.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and like it would have been plenty
dovetail into another story, or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it sounds like it was very specific background related things.
Yes, and it would have been fine if like once I had conquered my initial neighborhood, it just ended. Like I would have been satisfied and felt like, okay, I did that, gang's story, and maybe give me the option to keep going if I really want to paint the whole map. But I just there wasn't much point. It didn't seem like. So
is the combat in it kind of like XCOM-ish?
It is. Yes, it is very much XCOM. It is a full-on turn-based strategy game, and you are like positioning gangsters with Tommy guns or World War One era like rifles and stuff.
See, I think I'd be into the grand strategy thing, but the minutia of having to do like all the combats. Yeah, because a lot of those times it's just like I'm playing a game and it's like, yeah, the combat's kind of cool, but I just want to auto resolve this shit because it's just really I can't be bothered.
Yeah, I love oh my gosh, Age of Wonders Planetfall for that exact reason, because it gives you the option to click the button and just auto resolve the combat if you want, or you can go in and play a super intricate hex-based grid turn-based tactical game. And there are times when I want to do that, and there are times when I definitely do not. So
yeah,
I appreciate the option for sure. Another oddball one. This is gonna. I don't even sure how to explain it. It's called Murder by Numbers, and it is a visual novel and a Sudoku puzzle game wrapped in one.
Oh my god, I'm double out. You lost me at visual novel, and then you lost me again at Sudoku.
Yeah.
So is that like whenever
turned into a Charlie Brown?
Yeah. So, but is it like Samurai's Honor? So it's like you've dishonored the clan, so you have to commit Sudoku. It's like you have to play that till you die.
Oh no!
No, it's you basically have this robot companion, and the robot's like got mental problems or something, so you have to help it look for clues to the murders, and the way you do that is by solving a Sudoku puzzle, which clears up an image. I mean, it's not Sudoku. It's
would you like to play a game?
Pixar? No, not Pixar. What the hell is it called? There's the pixel puzzle games that are really popular.
The sliding puzzle things.
Yeah. Well, no. It's like, okay, on this line there are 4 spots, like Minesweeper. That's what it's like.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Minesweeper, but you're drawing a picture. Like as you uncover things, it draws a picture.
Oh, so God, it's a hacking minigame with art.
Yeah, kind of. And
did Jonathan Blow have anything to do with this?
I don't think so. But
okay.
I found the puzzles interesting. It did get ridiculously hard about 3/4 of the way through, and I just didn't have any more patience for it. But I was really having fun with it for like the first half of the game. So, for what it's worth, that one was all right. If that's your thing. So, hey Hunter.
Little risk of that.
Yo.
Hunter. So
Talk
if
to
I
me.
told you there's a game called Deliver Us the Moon, what genre would you expect that game to be?
Like a simulator.
Yeah, like okay, let me drive a space program. Maybe it's a military thing, like hey, the moon's the Soviets colonized the moon. Go conquer the moon
Well,
for America.
I'm thinking more like, it's like a pizza delivery service. Like you got to go and like deliver the moon simulator or something like that.
I'm gonna
Pizza
go.
Tycoon.
I'm gonna go with a 3D version of an old LucasArts Scum adventure about going to the moon and finding
Well,
out.
Jim, as always, you are spot on. It was a walking simulator.
Excellent.
I was so disappointed, and it wasn't even a good one. Like I appreciate story, and there are games that I will say, the game does such a good job of getting you sucked in that the fact that you do nothing but walk around and click on
See,
tape recorders or something doesn't bother me.
That was kind of like what was running through my mind, because there's that whole like that sim genre of like you know just these dumb things that you can simulate. What was the one that outpaces Deathloop right now in sales?
Gas Station Tycoon.
That's the kind of thing that I'm like. Yeah,
Yes.
that's gas station
Yeah, gas
simulator.
station
Like that.
simulator.
That to me, like when you said "Deliver Us the Moon," I was like, it's got to be a game like that. It's gonna be dumb.
Yeah, I heard. I guess it's one of those things where sometimes you're not really paying attention, but you kind of keep hearing a game mentioned over and over, so you're like, oh, this must be good. And it was sort of
slips
like that.
apart somehow.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I really want to try this. Like I've heard good things, and I went into it, and I was just like, oh my god. And I stuck with it because I was kind of interested in the story, but like, yeah, I just could not finish it. It just dragged and dragged and dragged. So
Yeah, it's kind of like that Interstellar a little bit, in that like the planet is screwed and you have to get up to the moon to fix the thing that's like, I think the energy, it beams energy down to Earth.
Yep.
So Earth's having like a mad blackout because the thing's been dead for a while. Yeah. So it takes like what, like an hour to get the fuel in the rocket and figure out how to launch that bitch. And then right?
Yep.
And the sandstorm is coming, so we've only got X amount of time before we have to scrub the launch and the whatever. And it was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And then you actually get up in orbit, and there's that space station that you stop at, right? And then there was a puzzle in there that I remember that was like, there's only 3 batteries, but there's like 6 doors, and you have to figure out what battery to have in the door so that you can like pull a battery out of another door that you don't need to go through anymore to sacrifice that one to go in the other. So it's basically like a maze where you can only have like 3 doors open at a time, and you have to like run back and forth swapping batteries and stuff. And I got to that, and I was like, this is how it's going to be, huh?
Yeah.
Uninstalled.
Well, there was a game when I was a kid, at least, called Towers of Hanoi, and it was 3 pegs, wooden pegs, and you had like little discs of different sizes, and you're supposed to,
I think. Tower.
Yeah, you're supposed to like move the discs across from one end to the other, but they had to end up in the right order, and you can only move one disc at a time. And it's like that kind of puzzle that they just use that kind of thing a lot, I felt like. But
there's actually a Fisher-Price version of that. It's got like little rubber donuts, and they're like teething rings for babies. But it's actually, if you look at the thing, it's like, oh my god, it's the Towers of Hammurabi. Like if my kid solves this, it's like go straight to college, like before you're even out of diapers.
Seriously. This is going to be an oddball one. I don't know if either of you guys have ever played Fuser. It is the latest game from Harmonix, the guys who invented, Guitar Hero, Rock Band, all of those.
Oh, this is the DJ thing, right?
This is a DJ game, yeah. But they had DJ Hero, which actually had a DJ like virtual instrument. This doesn't have any plastic guitars or anything. You get to dress up your DJ in appropriate fashion.
Do they sell you like outfit DLC? $1,000 of? Excellent.
Oh yes. And every song is $2. And they have probably 200 songs, maybe a little bit more than that by now. But it's all the songs that like I grew up with as a kid. So, they have everything from like the 60s to modern. So there's a pretty wide range. But I felt like most of the songs were things that I had heard and enjoyed. And it's fun because you can just get in. There's a whole story mode, and it's super complicated. You have to do like stuff in a certain order, and that I wouldn't recommend. But the freestyle mode where you just go in and goof around with music, because you can pull the vocal track from, Michael Jackson's Thriller, and lay that with, the drum track from a Billy Ray Cyrus song, and then throw in some Salt and Pepper. Like, you can just be goofy and have fun, and you can actually make stuff that sounds kind of cool. So I have fun just dicking around with that from time to time. It's just kind of a nice, like, unwind and hang out and relax game for me.
Yeah. Speaking of creative mode, sandboxy things, I wish that things like Project Spark and whatever, like that's, I guess
Dreams
that's only on
the
PlayStation. Or whichever one it is, that it's got like the whole damn studio in there, right? Like, do you want to do 3D modeling? Do you want to do the music? Do you want to do like everything that's a game studio? And like the only thing that's bad about it is that you're stuck on a PlayStation with a frickin' controller. Like, if I had a mouse and a keyboard and a machine with 64 gigs of RAM, I could make anything. But why don't they put that on the PC? Nobody knows.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the one that you mentioned first, Project Spark, was a Windows 10 and Xbox One release. Like, you could make stuff on the PC and then publish it, and you could play it on the Xbox. But it never like took off, and then they shut it down because it wasn't making any money.
Oh, that could have been like that could have been the new Xbox Arcade. Really,
I know. Well, and it was free, and the way they made money was by selling you assets. So if you wanted to do a medieval game, you had to, you probably would want to go buy the medieval asset pack or the sound
it's
pack.
Like they invented Unity.
Yeah, well, it was kind of reinvented, but yeah, I mean,
yeah.
So the one thing I wanted to mention about Fuser though, the DJ game, before I forget, it actually has a mode where you can bid like in-game currency to go on stage, and anyone in the game across the world, cross-platform, can watch you DJ. So you can like do a set for your friends, or you can do a set for whoever wants to watch, and anybody can just like sign into the game and watch you, which I thought was kind of a neat idea.
Okay, so
this one's for all my homies.
You know what would be super dope is if they had DJ battles, right? Where it's you versus somebody else and the audience votes. And
there is a mode like that, but it's not humans voting. It's just like the AI scores you or whatever, which isn't as cool.
Right. If it was actually like performance for audience of other players, right? And then it could actually be like, yeah, man, we're having a Fuser tournament. Get in here.
Okay, so Jim, I'm going to use some words from this next game, the description on their website.
We'll see if I can guess the game.
Let's see. We'll see if this just makes you gag. This game is a strategic roguelike deck building game with a twist.
Hentai?
No.
Okay, because that would be the next word that would seal the deal. It would just be like,
It is a game called Monster Train.
Oh yeah,
and so like I generally do not like roguelike because I need to feel a sense of progression, right? If I play a game, I want something to like carry me through, where I'm going to get the bigger sword, I'm going to get the better armor, I'm going to get the cool boots, whatever it is. And so most roguelikes for me are just a waste of time because there's no progression or very little.
Right.
And this game actually does have an interesting progression mechanic to it. Plus, I really enjoy deck building games. I don't know why, like something about the cards and upgrading the cards, and this is really cool. You can get some just stupid overpowered monsters if you play it right. And it's satisfying because you're playing as a demon. trying to relight the fires of hell, and so you're fighting all these goofy, weird angel and like hero characters. So it's kind of that reverse hero or anti-hero. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't know how you
have you played
it.
Slay the Spire?
Yes.
Okay, so I found this to be like somebody who played Slay the Spire and was like, okay, that, but we also need like a more in-depth like mechanic where things are going to progress up the screen. So you have to think not about just the battle that's happening on the ground floor, but they go up 4 levels, right? So you have to decide, I'm going to put my troops where and in what order, because the front rank guy is going to get hit, but you might want to put the damage guy behind him and whatever. But also, what floor do you want him on? Because at what point do you want to actually do the kill blow? Or if too many guys come in and it gets overwhelmed, maybe it just like overflows your defense, right?
Yep.
That kind of thing. So it's just kind of like, okay, it's like Slay the Spire, but now you got to think about all this other stuff too. And that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, that's what sold it, because I found Slay the Spire a little bit simplistic, where this, like, every fight, every level was really engaging because you did have those multiple levels and you had multiple cards to play, and then the positioning mattered, and you could get the relics for the run that sometimes change the rules, massively. There's one that I would get that basically made every summon free. So if you threw out a monster, it was just free. So you wanted monsters, not spells, because spells were expensive, but you wanted to have some spells because then you could use your mana, was basically not being tied up by the characters. So I found it really fun. It had some neat mechanics, and then it has the whole progression thing because you unlock more cards and different types of cards as you play. So at any rate, that one was really cool to me. I've got just 2 more. Hunter's giving me the throat cut symbol to tell us that we're done here, but
he's got the wrap it up box out from Chappelle.
He does. So the one is another kind of deck building tactical game called Trials of Fire. This is more like you have a hex map and you play your hero's abilities are cards, so you play the cards to attack enemies. But there's a lot more about positioning and chain attacks and things like that. But the overworld is a storybook. And so you're moving your characters around this world as if you're looking in a storybook. And so that one was really cool. It's kept me coming back to try it again and again, which most roguelikes I find, I lose interest in pretty quick. But both Monster Train and Trials of Fire have keep me coming back. All right, so our last game that I will bring up that I was playing is a game that I feel like you kind of have to watch the trailer to even have the vaguest idea of what the hell's going on. So I linked it here in chat, and maybe I should link it again because it's all the way at the top. And I'm just going to suggest that you mute it, but play the trailer, and I'll talk a little bit about what the game is.
Okay.
It's called an airport for aliens currently run by dogs.
Oh yeah, I've already seen the trailer, and I was like, the what? Why was this so popular? Like, everybody was just batshit about this thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of stupid. I mean, like, it was entertaining for, half an hour, but I didn't feel any desire to continue on with it. It has a little bit of a puzzle element because you have to like find stuff in the game world to help you progress. And a lot of it is tied up in language because you're human. And so you don't read the language that the aliens in the airport use. So you have to like look at your ticket and figure out which gate to go to and stuff. And there's all the like weird airport stores along the way, and they're all run by dogs, but they're not actually 3D model dogs. They're just clip art, like 2D static clip art of dogs.
Yeah, it was like the lowest effort thing. Like the meme is, how low effort could this game possibly be? like
Yes.
more than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, well, and it's like an asset flip, but they didn't even bother to steal the assets. They just stole the clip art site. Like,
You know what would actually make it better is if the dogs actually had like the clip art site watermarks on them, right? Like, no, we just we wholesale stole these shits.
Oh no.
I've noticed a meme of people doing that on purpose in their YouTube videos where they'll use like a funny graphic, but they make sure it's got the watermark boldly on it, like haha. Yeah.
Well, it didn't impress me. I didn't understand it. Maybe I don't get the joke or something, or the joke's just stupid, which is my theory. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy kind of those quirky games, and sometimes I find a gem, find a turd. It's just how it goes.
Yeah.
I guess.
Have you ever played Diary of a Spaceport Janitor?
I have it, and I've looked at it, but I have never actually played it.
You should fire that up. And don't be like too committed to it, but just enjoy it for the WTF of what it's trying to do.
Got it.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Cleanup Detail is another one that like seems like that. I know I gifted Hunter a game recently as a I told him it was practice because his basement's infested with spiders. Do you remember the name of that one, Hunter?
Was infested.
They're just hiding.
Kill it with fire.
Kill it with fire. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They're timetable. They're waiting for you to get complacent.
Dude, that game also, like, love the concept. Kind of got old after a couple of levels.
It's kind of like
what you're doing.
It's kind of like Goat Simulator. You know what I mean? Like, this is funny.
Yeah.
But you know what? They actually kind of made a game out of like Call of Goat or whatever it was, or Goat of Duty or whatever that game was that they made. That was actually like pretty fun. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Goat Simulator that made it more than the sum of its parts is because they would come out with like completely whack ass modes for it. Like, oh well, here's the MMO version of Goat Simulator. Right, and then they did like the space station version, and and it was like it's still this dumb physics thing with a goat tongue, but it was they put it in a different environment that was weird enough, and it was
they did zombies.
The MMO. Yeah,
they did zombies. They did the MMO, and they did a couple other DLCs for it too, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. When you buy it now, you just get like the whole collection. I just remember like whenever the original Goat Simulator thing came out, that if you like collected enough people and then like dumped them in the forest in this ring of trees, that like summoned the devil or some shit. It was like, what? The cool Easter egg that they put in there.
Mm-hmm. The game has a bunch of those, and you unlock different goats by doing them now. So like if you want a flying carpet goat, you have to go to the Middle Eastern store and eat a falafel or something goofy. Like it's that kind of little Easter eggs that they stuck in there. But getting some of those is actually super powerful because they give you, special abilities for your goat.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There was a game that I picked up, and it was like embarrassingly expensive for being a Goat Simulator kind of game. But it was like you ran around with guns, right? And it was Oh Dear. That's what it was called.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, have you played that? Because
I have seen it. Yeah,
that is equally dumb. Like if you've seen it, don't waste the money on it because you've seen it. But it's just the thing of playing it, and then you get to the next level, and you're like, oh my god, what? Like the first boss fight is like a giant like robot dog thing that. Yeah, it's just like this couldn't get dumber. Oh god, it did.
Here's the funny thing though. We could probably talk about all of these games we're playing and all the dumb crap we've been finding on the internet that is mildly entertaining. But unfortunately, we do need to wrap this up.
All right, we'll just quit recording and we'll keep talking and screw you guys.
That's right. Come join our Discord where we will be keeping these kind of conversations going because they are fun and entertaining and engaging. So come on over to discord.otherworlds.gg and get all your fill of the weird stuff we find on the internet to play. And on top of all of that, we are doing our 100 for 100 giveaway. We are still continuing to slowly increase our population on our Discord server, so come on over, and you too will have a chance to win a $25 Amazon gift card. And
woo-woo.
We do have a couple of game servers. We are in the process of rotating some game servers out at the moment, so we are currently down to our Unreal Tournament server and a Minecraft server that we still have going on as we prepare for Battlefield 2042 and some other things, so we are in the process of rotating those things. But this has been episode 39, and we are sure thankful that you guys stuck it out for this long. If you have, if you're still listening, praise you, good Lord, and we will see you all in the next episode.
We should actually give away like a discount code at the end of the show for those that actually made it. It'll just be like, oh, and go to Grubhub, and here's your code.
See you guys next time. Bye-bye.